So here we are, everybody. I'm Patrick Smith again, and I'm here with Mike Geig, who actually works for Unity, the game engine platform company. How you doing, sir?
Good. How about yourself?
Great, great. So for the people that may not know about Unity, can you talk a little bit about what that is and how that actually works?
Sure. You want me to hold this?
Sure.
All right. So Unity Technologies makes the Unity game engine, and what that is a game engine in general is basically a piece of software that takes all of the components of a game that are universal: rendering, physics, script processing, audio, and extracts them into its core functionality, and then allows you to focus on the things that you want to make specific to your game. And so the Unity game engine basically is that where you can build a game on top of this software and then deploy it basically to every platform. I believe we support 27 platforms, all mobile platforms, desktop, VR platforms, console platforms. And so it gives you the ability to say, focus on the parts of your game you want to build. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to render a model. I just have to worry about what the model looks like and what it does, right? The things that are unique to me. And then when I'm ready, I can build it to PC or to Android or to Wii U or VR or whatever platform I really want. And our goal, or our core tenet, right, is really to, as we say, democratize game development. Make it so that anyone can make any game, right, and make it easy and make it a very low barrier to entry to get started and build your games and build awesome games and get them in the hands of everybody.
Well, I would also say, too, during your presentation, I have played Firewatch. A lot of people there have probably played Firewatch. That was done with the Unity engine. I believe a game I didn't see on your list, but I'm pretty sure Oxenfree was another game I played. I was thinking they might have actually used the Unity engine as well.
What's Oxenfree?
Oxenfree is... oh wow. Well, it kind of reminds me of Until Dawn in the fact that like you build relationships between people and you all go to this island. You go back to this island because there was an accident on the island a couple years ago. Kind of almost has the same, Until Dawn feel to it. And so throughout the game, you're answering questions or someone says something to you and you're prompted to go ahead and do certain responses.
Okay, so it's a very like cinematic story narrative.
Cinematic narrative, and also there's this whole idea too is a very spiritual, elemental horror type feel to it, where you keep on repeating a certain section.
Okay.
But I was pretty sure that they actually had done that as well. I think
I
just think my whole point I was trying to get at is even the small 5-person indie developers are using Unity, and even the AAA studios are using Unity. So it's scalable up to whatever type of game you want to make, however big of a budget, however big of a platform.
Exactly. So a lot of our tech demos really show, what our capabilities really are, and there's a lot we can do, and a lot of people think like, oh, hey, if this is a tool made for indies, then it's really not appropriate for my company, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, a lot of AAA studios use Unity. We have really just incredible capabilities, and what I really like about the engine itself is that the features that we may not have, you can just add. Our editor's extendable. You can just add new windows, new capabilities, new features. Oh, I really don't like the way this feature works. I'll just make an editor extension that makes it work this way, and there we go. And so, it's one of these tools that it's so flexible and it supports so many platforms that, a small one-person team can build something, and a huge studio can build something, and it's really impressive to see the huge variety of games that come out. Not just games, but medical applications, architectural applications, learning endeavors, simulations, things like that. Just super cool.
One of the questions that actually came up in the keynote that you did today, which I think probably a lot of people might ask you, is how did you get into the game industry, and what education did you need or have to get into it?
So I joke around about this a lot, and it's a joke I made earlier that the key to getting into the game industry is you see a job opening, you apply, they hire you, and there you go, and you just broke in, right? So there's no mystic barrier there. Now, that's a joke, and it is true. However, you do need to have some skill, obviously, to get hired in any job, not just game job. For me personally, my path is a little bit different than most. Everyone kind of has different paths. So I started off, I went to a community college in Ohio where I studied technology, kind of computer science. And my degree was in computer science. I went on to Kent and got a 4-year degree, again, in sort of technology, computer science equivalent. I had these grand dreams at the time of getting a master's or a doctorate. I don't know why. And during that time, I started, playing around with my own games and stuff like that, and games was always this thing I kind of came back to. I wrote my first game on a TI-83 calculator using the basic syntax when I was like 11, right? And I didn't really think anything of it. It was just something I did because it was fun, and later I just kept doing that, as I learned more about code and things like that. So, but that's not really where I started games. This was something that was sort of a passion, and then, from there, I worked business development. I actually started working at an indie studio that was local, and kind of moving around in that regard. I started teaching at a few schools computer science. I wrote a couple of books, and then eventually, I started getting into Unity and working with it and running a website. And I actually created my own video series, video tutorials, just again in my free time. And I've made hundreds now, and then eventually I said, hey, Unity's looking for has an opening, I'll apply, and there we go. So now I work there. But it's kind of an odd path. But I really think that and this is something that gets taken for granted a lot, and a lot of people don't quite grasp, is that the game industry is kind of an odd industry, right? It's still kind of new. The rules are kind of being figured out. But if it's ever a choice whether or not you're going to make games, then it's actually probably not for you. For me, it was never a choice. It's just what I kept doing anyway, and there are a lot of people that feel that pull to it. And if you're one of those people, then you'll make it work and you'll figure it out. And you can go to school specifically for games. That's a great way in. That's a great way to jumpstart your education. But don't think, I didn't go to school for games, so I can't compete. That's not true at all either. Or don't think, hey, I don't live in a region where there's games and I'm going to have to move. I live in Ohio. I live in a small area in Ohio, and it's maybe non-traditional, non-standard, but that's kind of the entire industry in a nutshell. Non-traditional, non-standard. So,
well, one of the things that I take away from what you said there is that you had already done a lot of stuff. Like, we try to tell our students, if you're going to go into the gaming field, you need to be making games. You need to be working. So even before you were in the gaming field, you were already writing books. You were already teaching. You were already doing the self-learning and continuous learning independently of an actual company. And then you started playing in the video game field yourself, so that when you did apply for that job, you actually had some definite, what we call artifacts, to look back on.
Sure.
You were an author. You had done books. They could look at your actual, your work ethic, your self-work ethic that you had, and see that you continued on. So that's something we try to actually instill in our students. So
important.
So you had that. It wasn't necessarily in the gaming field, but you had that. So that's something an employer does look for when they're trying to hire somebody.
I mean, you can teach skills, right? You can teach anything. You can teach responsibilities, skills. To a degree, you can teach professionalism, but you kind of have to have some of that, right? Hygiene, maybe. But unless you have this drive to want it, you can't teach passion, right? And so I know that whenever I've looked at people that I wanted to work at or have been hiring or whatever, I can very easily say, this portfolio, these are 3 projects that you did as school projects. They made you do that. I didn't really care how good it is, right? And here are these 10 projects. 3 of them were school projects, and 7 of these were like half finished, but hey, I was thinking through this idea, or this is something I prototyped out or whatever. And that's the person I want to work with, right? Because you know what? If I give them a task, it doesn't matter if they don't necessarily know how to complete it now. They will, right? And they want to know how to do it, and they want to do it, and that's way more important than really much else. Everything else is just experience and time, and so that's a very important characteristic. So if you have students who aren't necessarily self-starters, then maybe that's something they really need to consider. Like, maybe if you're not motivated to do this, maybe it's not what you should be doing, or maybe you just need to reflect about what it is about games makes you want to make them. Like, maybe you're going to school to be an artist for games, but what you really like is telling stories. So maybe you're in the wrong area of games, right? Or maybe you like the mechanics. Maybe you like breaking games. Maybe you're that one person in Minecraft who's min-maxed an ABBA circuit or whatever for whatever. Well, then maybe you should be more in the mechanics design, or even the engineering side, or tools engineering, or whatever, right? It's all about finding that right niche. But as someone who's been an educator, I'm sure you see this as well. Like, I've taught game design classes, and when you have students who are like, let's talk about games today, and there's like, and you're like, we're talking about games. If you don't want to do that, then maybe you really need to rethink this. So, that passion is something you need to look for within yourself. That's going to drive you through the difficult, confusing, fast-paced times of the game industry. So that's something that employers are looking for, and that's something that really you want to have and you want to promote within yourself and within your friends and, within your communities and stuff like that, is that, yes, we want to do this and we're going to build some really cool stuff, because I think that's what it's all about.
So find whatever you're passionate about and run towards it.
Yep.
Mike, thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for being our first keynote ever. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I stood in line. I played it at E3.
Oh, you did? I didn't go to E3.
I played it at E3. I got the coin. I got the shirt. Because
we're going to talk about this after the.
Yeah. But thank you so much for being our first keynote here at the West Virginia Game Developers Expo.